Introducing The Art of Listening to Yourself, an elegant masterclass in tuning in to your intuitive voice. Ismael Cala, the internationally renowned author and speaker, presents his very first book published in English. Discover how to align your mind, quiet the external noise, and connect deeply with your true heart. This is The Art of Listening to Yourself. Available now.
This episode explores one of the most transformative distinctions in emotional intelligence and spiritual growth. An emotion arrives first. It has a phase. It is immediate, instinctive, biological. What happens when the amygdala, a small structure within the brain's limbic system, interprets our brain isn't malfunctioning in those moments? Now, I'd like to invite you into a few moments of stillness. Close your eyes. We live in a world that has taught us to divide emotions into two categories, good and bad. An entire future, a new horizon. When we say, I am just impatient, or I've always been this way. This episode explores one of the most transformative distinctions in emotional intelligence and spiritual growth, the difference between an emotion and a feeling. While emotions are immediate biological responses, feelings are the stories we build around those emotions. And understanding that difference can profoundly change the way we love, lead, forgive, parent, communicate, and relate to ourselves. Drawing from neuroscience, psychology, and spirituality, today's conversation invites listeners to stop fighting their emotions and begin listening to them with awareness. Because true freedom is not found in controlling what we feel, but in refusing to let our emotions become the authors of our lives. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James, verse 19. I have always loved the wisdom contained in this verse. James never tells us not to feel anger. He doesn't ask us to suppress it or pretend it doesn't exist. Instead, he reminds us that between what we feel and how we respond lies sacred ground, a place where awareness has time to awaken before reaction takes over. And perhaps that space is where spiritual maturity truly begins. Okay? Between stimulus and response, there is space. And this is a phrase from Viktor Frankl. And he said, in that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and also our freedom. This quote has become one of the guiding principles of my life. Freedom is not the absence of pain. It is the ability to decide what we will do with it. Life will continue bringing uncertainty, disappointment, joy, grief, love, and unexpected turns. Our greatest power is not choosing the circumstances. It is choosing the consciousness from which we respond.
The Abundance Revolution with Ismael Cala. The Abundance Revolution begins now.
Welcome, my friends of the world, to the Abundance Revolution. Today, I invite you into one of the most intimate places you'll ever explore. The place where every emotion is born. Take slow, deep breath. And relax. Perhaps this episode isn't here to teach you how to control your emotions. Perhaps it is here to remind you that every emotion arrives carrying a message. But not every emotion deserves to become the voice that leads your life. We live in a world that has taught us to divide emotions into two categories: good and bad. We celebrate joy, we hide sadness, we admire confidence, we feel ashamed of fear, we applaud strengths. Yet, we often mistake strength for the inability to cry. From childhood, we learned to suppress whatever made other people uncomfortable. And gradually, we began believing that certain emotions were signs of weaknesses, immaturity, or lack of faith. Nature, however, tells a completely different story. No emotion exists to harm us. Every emotion carries information. Fear tries to protect us. Sadness invites us inward. Anger signals that a boundary may have been crossed. Joy reminds us that we are deeply connected to life. The problem begins the moment we stop listening to the message and start blindly obeying the emotion itself. That is the moment we stop feeling and begin reacting. There is an enormous difference between those two experiences. That difference can shape a marriage, a family, a business, an entire life. So for many years, I believed that spiritual growth meant reaching a place where nothing could disturb me anymore. I imagined peace as a permanent emotional state where fear disappeared, sadness never returned, and anger simply ceased to exist. But life taught me something much wiser. Authentic spirituality does not remove our humanity, it illuminates it. It does not make us incapable of feeling. It teaches us how to remain conscious while we feel. And that is the conversation I want us to have today. When the body speaks before the mind, there is one distinction that has the power to transform the way we understand ourselves. Emotions and feelings are not the same thing. And we often use those words interchangeably, but neuroscience and psychology tell us otherwise. An emotion arrives first. It has a face. It is immediate, instinctive, biological. Your body reacts before your mind has time to explain anything. Your heartbeat accelerates. Your breathing changes. Your muscles tighten. Your hands become sweaty and your stomach contracts. The emotion has already entered your nervous system long before language appears. Then comes the feeling. And this is where the real story begins. A feeling is the meaning your mind assigns to the emotion. It is the narrative you create around what happened. The emotion simply says, something important just occurred, and the feeling begins filling in the blanks. Like, this means they don't love me. I am being rejected. I'll be abandoned again. I am not enough. I can't trust anyone. I need to defend myself. That inner story can remain alive long after the emotion itself has disappeared. This is why we rarely react only to what is happening. More often, we react to everything within us that still needs healing. An innocent comment awakens an old wound of rejection. Silence triggers childhood abandonment. Constructive criticism touches an ancient belief that we are not enough, and the present moment becomes merely the spark. The real life or the real fire was lit years ago. Understanding this changes everything, because instead of becoming victims of our emotions, we become students of them. every emotion becomes a teacher, not an enemy. Neuroscience offers fascinating support for this idea. Psychologist Daniel Goleman popularized the concept of the amygdala hijack, describing what happens when the amygdala, a small structure within the brain's limbic system, interprets a situation as dangerous and triggers an emotional reaction before the rational brain has time to evaluate what is actually happening. We've all experienced it. The text message we answered from wounded pride, the harsh words we immediately regret, the impulsive decision that costs far more than we imagined. Our brain isn't malfunctioning in those moments. It is trying to protect us. The challenge is that the brain evolved primarily for survival, not necessarily for wisdom. That is why consciousness matters so deeply, because where impulse ends, freedom begins, and freedom can be trained. There is one idea that has stayed with me for years, and every time I revisit it, it reveals a deeper truth. The emotion is rarely the problem. The real struggle begins with the story we start telling ourselves after we feel it. Imagine receiving an unexpected phone call. Someone says something you never anticipated hearing. Within a fraction of a second, your body reacts, your heart begins to race, your breathing changes, your muscles tighten, and before you have formed a single sentence in your mind, your nervous system has already interpreted the moment. That's an emotion. That's emotion. It is immediate, it is biological, it is part of the extraordinary intelligence with which we were created. But only seconds later, something else quietly enters the scene. The mind begins to explain. It starts connecting the present moment with memories from the past. It fills in missing pieces. It predicts outcomes. It searches for meaning. And gradually, the emotion becomes a narrative. And now the conversation changes. Because instead of simply feeling disappointment, we begin saying, "This always happens to me." And instead of noticing sadness, we conclude, "No one truly loves me." And instead of acknowledging fear, we convince ourselves, "I'll never be enough." So the emotion lasted only a few moments, but the story may last a lifetime. That realization changed my life because it helped me understand that human suffering is often sustained less by events themselves and more by the interpretations we continue repeating long after the event has ended. So two people can experience the very same situation. One discovers resilience, the other confirms hopelessness. One finds meaning, the other strengthens an old wound. And the event may be identical, but the inner story is not.
Introducing The Art of Listening to Yourself, an elegant masterclass in tuning in to your intuitive voice. Ismael Cala, the internationally renowned author and speaker, presents his very first book published in English. Discover how to align your mind, quiet the external noise, and connect deeply with your true heart. This is The Art of Listening to Yourself. Available now.
Psychologist Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, whose groundbreaking research has reshaped the modern understanding of emotions, explains that our brains are constantly predicting and assigning meaning to experience. In other words, we are not passive observers of reality. We are active participants in constructing it. Think about what that means. Most of us don't simply experience life. We experience the explanation our mind creates about life. And that changes everything. Because if the story can be rewritten, then healing becomes possible. There are questions that I have learned to ask myself whenever an emotion feels unusually intense. I don't ask them because I distrust my feelings. I ask these questions because I respect them enough to become curious. And I wonder, what exactly am I reacting to? Is this emotion speaking about today, or is it awakening something much older? Am I responding to reality or to a memory? Am I seeing this person as he or she truly is, or through the lens of an old wound? Those questions have saved me from countless unnecessary battles. Not because they eliminate emotion, but because they invite consciousness, high consciousness, into the conversation. And consciousness changes everything. It slows us down just enough to realize that our first interpretation is not always the wisest one. Sometimes our pain is real, yet the conclusion we draw from it is not. So there is an extraordinary freedom in recognizing that distinction, because once we understand that thoughts are interpretations rather than facts, we begin to recover our ability to choose. Let me tell you a story. There is an old Zen story that beautifully illustrates this truth. A young disciple arrived at his master's home deeply upset. Earlier that morning, someone had insulted him in the marketplace, and ever since, he had been replaying the scene over and over again. He spoke with anger. His breathing was heavy. His entire body carried the weight of what had happened. And the master listened quietly without interrupting him. And then he poured a cup of tea until it was completely full. Instead of drinking it, he simply held it in his hands. Several minutes passed. Finally, the disciple asked, "Master, why are you holding the tea instead of drinking it?" And the old man smiled. "I wanted to show you what you've been doing all day." The disciple looked confused. "The insult was the tea," the master said. "The man who insulted you has already continued with his life, but you have chosen to carry the cup for hours." He paused. "It is not the tea that is exhausting you. It is your refusal to put the cup down." I have never forgotten that story, because I think many of us spend years carrying invisible cups. An old betrayal, a painful divorce, a harsh sentence spoken by a teacher, a mistake we made decades ago, a disappointment, a rejection. The weight no longer comes from what happened. The weight comes from continuing to carry it. So forgiveness is not always about excusing another person's behavior. Sometimes forgiveness is simply the decision to stop carrying a cup no one else is asking us to hold anymore. And there is another misunderstanding I would love to gently dismantle. But first, please subscribe to this channel. Probably you are watching me for the first time and you're not subscribed to Ismael Cala here on YouTube. So please click on the bottom for the subscription, and also activate the notifications bell. So you don't have to worry, you don't have to remember when we are going to see each other at this space here. Okay, there is another misunderstanding I would love to gently dismantle. Many people believe that spiritual maturity means becoming emotionally untouchable, as though awakening meant never feeling fear, never experiencing sadness, never becoming frustrated, never grieving. I have never met a spiritually mature person who no longer feels. What I have met are people who no longer allow their emotions to become dictators. Even Jesus wept. He felt sorrow before the death of Lazarus. He experienced anguish. He expressed righteous anger in the temple. His emotions were never signs of weaknesses. They were expressions of his humanity. So the difference was that his emotions never displaced love from the center of his decisions. And that to me is spiritual maturity. Not emotional suppression, but emotional integration. You are not less spiritual because you are feeling anger. You are not weak because fear visits you. You are not failing because sadness appears. The question is never, why am I feeling this? The deeper question is, what is this emotion trying to teach me? Every emotion carries information. Anger may reveal a boundary that needs protecting. Fear may reveal a place that longs for trust. Sadness may invite us to slow down and honor a loss. Even envy can become quite useful, revealing forgotten dreams or neglected gifts. When we stop fighting our emotions, they begin revealing their wisdom. And wisdom is always more interested in transformation than condemnation. There is one emotion we often take for granted because we assume it appears only when life is going well. Joy. We tell ourselves, I'll be happy when this problem is solved. I'll finally enjoy life when I get that promotion, when my finances improve, when my relationship changes, when everything settles down. Without realizing it, we turn joy into a reward that depends entirely on external circumstances. But life has a curious way of exposing that illusion. There is always another goal, another challenge, another mountain to climb, another responsibility waiting just beyond the one we have just completed. If joy always belongs to someday, then someday quietly becomes never. And while we postpone living, life continues unfolding without us. One of the most influential figures in positive psychology, Dr. Martin Seligman, spent decades studying the foundations of lasting well-being. Lasting well-being. His research consistently showed that enduring happiness depends far less on external success than on inner factors such as meaning, gratitude, healthy relationships, engagement, and a sense of purpose. So that finding resonates deeply with spiritual wisdom. Joy is not merely an emotional reaction, it is also a spiritual practice. Not because we force ourselves to smile when our hearts need to grieve. No, that would be emotional denial. Rather, it is the quiet decision to remain connected to life even when life or while life is imperfect. So gratitude is one expression of that discipline. Presence is another. Wonder is another. Choosing to notice beauty, even in the ordinary moments, becomes an act of spiritual resistance against a culture that constantly trains us to focus on what is missing. Charles Chaplin once said, "A day without laughter is a day wasted." As the years have passed, I become to believe he wasn't speaking merely about laughter. He was speaking about openness, about remaining available to joy. Some adults carry seriousness as though it were proof of maturity. Yet true maturity does not harden the face, it softens the heart. So joy is not the opposite of responsibility. Joy is often what gives us the strength to carry responsibility without losing ourselves along the way. And people often ask what leadership truly is. Many believe it is influence. Others think it is authority. Some associate it with charisma or communication. I have come to see it differently. Leadership begins long before we can influence others. It begins the moment we learn to lead ourselves. So a person may successfully manage a multinational company and still be unable to manage disappointment. Someone may inspire thousands from a stage, yet remain completely overwhelmed by anger inside their own home. So a brilliant executive may know how to solve complex business problems, but have no idea what to do with shame, grief, or fear. That is why emotional intelligence is not an accessory to leadership. It is one of its foundations. Researchers Dr. John Mayer and Dr. Peter Salovey, pioneers in the scientific study of emotional intelligence, demonstrated that the ability to recognize, to understand, and to regulate emotions strongly influences judgment, relationships, resilience, and leadership effectiveness. And also, Daniel Goleman, I already cited or quoted Daniel. He later expanded this work, showing that emotional self-awareness consistently distinguishes exceptional leaders from merely competent ones. When I reflect on the people who have transformed my life, I rarely remember them because they had all the answers. I remember them because of how I felt in their presence. Some people create safety, others create fear. Some awaken possibility, others awaken anxiety. So leadership is emotional before it is intellectual. People may forget what we said, but they rarely forget how we made them feel. So one of the greatest shifts in my own life happened when I stopped saying, "That's just who I am. That's just who I am." And I began saying, "This is something I haven't learned yet." Those two sentences seem similar. They are worlds apart. The first one closes every door. Fixed mindset. The second one opens an entire future, a new horizon. When we say, "I am just impatient," or "I've always been this way," we unknowingly transform a behavior into an identity. But when we say, I am still learning emotional regulation, or "I am still learning how to respond instead of react," we immediately make room for growth. Hope enters, possibility returns, compassion replaces judgment. That is one of the reasons I believe Transformation remains available to every human being. If something can be learned, it can be practiced. If it can be practiced, it can be strengthened. If it can be strengthened, it can actually or eventually become part of who we are. So healing is rarely a single breakthrough. It is usually thousands of conscious choices, repeated with love. Okay, my friends of the world, let's do a 5-minute abundance activation, okay? From reaction to presence. Now, I'd like to invite you into a few moments of stillness. If possible, gently close your eyes. Take slow, deep breath through your nose. Exhale softly through your mouth. Again, breathe in peace. Breathe out tension. Allow every breath to become a gentle reminder that you do not need to control this moment. You only need to be present for it. Imagine yourself sitting beside a perfectly calm lake. The surface of the water reflects the sky without effort. Every emotion that arises is like a single leaf falling upon the water. Notice it. Watch it arrive. Watch it float. Watch it slowly drift away. You do not need to chase it. You do not need to push it away. You simply witness it. Now, place one hand over your heart. Feel its steady rhythm. This heart has known joy. It has known grief. It has survived disappointment. It has celebrated new beginnings. And still, it continues beating. Take another deep breath. Silently repeat. Every emotion deserves to be heard. No emotion deserves to rule my life. Again. Every emotion deserves to be heard. No emotion deserves to rule my life. And silently repeat with me. I welcome my emotions with compassion. I welcome my emotions with compassion. I answer them with wisdom. Now, imagine a warm golden light descending gently from above. Not a light that judges, a light that understands. It enters through the crown of your head and slowly fills your entire body. It touches your mind. Where confusion existed, clarity begins to emerge. It reaches your throat. Where words were trapped, truth gently finds its voice. It continues into your heart. Where sadness once lived, compassion quietly expands. Then it moves into your abdomen, that sacred place where so many unspoken emotions have been stored for years. With every exhale, allow whatever no longer serves you to dissolve. Not with force, not through struggle, simply through surrender. Remain here for a few quiet moments. Listen to your breathing. Listen to your heartbeat. And remember, you are not your fear. You are not your anger. You are not your sadness. You are not your anxiety. You are the loving awareness capable of embracing every emotion without becoming imprisoned by any of them. Take one final deep breath. Smile gently. Feel your body. Feel the space your body occupies in the space. Feel the temperature on your skin. And when you are ready, slowly open your eyes. Ooh. Wow. And my friends of the world, as we come to the end of today's conversation, I want to leave you with one final thought. Life has never asked us to stop feeling. It has invited us to love what we feel with enough awareness that it no longer controls us. Every emotion arrives carrying a message. Fear asks for trust. Anger asks for honesty. Sadness asks for tenderness. Joy asks to be shared. Consciousness transforms those messages into wisdom. And wisdom has an extraordinary gift. It frees us without hardening us. So the next time fear visits your heart, don't ask only how to make it disappear. Ask what it has come to teach you. When sadness arrives, don't rush to escape it. Allow it to become a sacred invitation to return home to yourself. When anger knocks at your door, remember that before a single word leaves your lips, there is always a holy space where awareness can enter. That space is where freedom lives. That space is where God whispers. Because emotional maturity is not about feeling less. It is about loving more. More awareness, more compassion, more patience, more presence, more humanity. And when that happens, something beautiful unfolds. We stop reacting to life and begin responding to it from the deepest part of our soul. May every emotion that visits your heart become another opportunity to awaken you, because abundance does not begin when life becomes easier. No, abundance begins the moment your inner world becomes wiser than your circumstances. God is love. Let the miracle happen. Amen. Namaste. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I am Ismael Cala, your host of the Abundance Revolution. See you on the next conversation. Please share this audio, share this video with at least 5 beautiful people in this amazing world, in this amazing planet. See ya.
The Abundance Revolution with Ismael Cala continues.